The stone corridor was colder than usual that night. Guard Thomas Merrick had walked this hallway 1,000 times before, but something felt different. His boots echoed against the ancient walls of Windsor Castle, each step louder than it should be. The portraits of past kings and queens seemed to watch him with sharper eyes. He checked his watch. 2:47 a.m. 3 more hours until shift change. Then he heard it. A voice, low and sharp. Coming from the sealed corridor, Thomas stopped mid-step. His hand instinctively moved to his radio. The sealed corridor wasn't supposed to be open. It had been locked for months, ever since the incident with the stolen documents. Only senior members of the royal household had keys. And at this hour, no one should be there. The voice grew louder, angrier. Thomas recognized it immediately. Prince William, his pulse quickened. In his 12 years serving the royal guard, Thomas had never heard the prince speak like this. William was known for his composure, his careful control in every situation. But this voice was raw, desperate, almost breaking. If you're wondering what happens next, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of this story. Things are about to get intense. Thomas moved closer to the corridor entrance. The heavy oak door was slightly ajar. A thin strip of warm light spilled onto the cold floor. He should announce himself. Protocol demanded it. But something made him hesitate. Through the gap, he could see shadows moving. 2 figures. One tall and rigid. The other smaller, gesturing wildly. You had no right. William's voice cut through the silence like broken glass. You went behind my back. You lied to my face? Thomas's breath caught. He'd never heard royalty speak with such pain. Such betrayal. The other voice responded, quieter, but Thomas couldn't make out the words. It sounded defensive, pleading almost. Don't, William said, his voice dropping to something more dangerous than shouting. Don't you dare make excuses. Not now. Not after everything. Thomas knew he should walk away. This was private. Royal business. But his feet wouldn't move. Something in William's voice held him frozen. It wasn't just anger. It was heartbreak. A crash echoed from inside the corridor. Glass shattering against stone. Thomas flinched. His training screamed at him to intervene, to check if anyone was hurt. But this wasn't a security threat. This was something far more complicated. The smaller figure spoke again, louder this time. Thomas caught fragments. ... Never meant to. ... Had to protect. ... Protect. William's laugh was bitter, hollow. You call this protection? You've destroyed everything. Everything we built. Everything we promised. Silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Thomas pressed his back against the wall, his heart hammering. He should leave. File a report. Let someone else handle this. But he couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because in that moment, Thomas realized something. Whatever was happening in that sealed corridor wasn't just a royal argument. It was something that could change everything. And he was the only witness. Thomas heard footsteps, approaching the door from inside. Heavy, unsteady, he stepped back into the shadows, pressing himself against a stone pillar. The door swung open wider. William emerged first, his face pale in the dim corridor light. His jaw was clenched so tight Thomas could see the muscle twitching. His hands were shaking. Behind him came the other figure. Thomas's stomach dropped. It was Edward, the senior private secretary. The man who'd served the family for over 20 years. The man everyone trusted. His eyes were red. His usually perfect suit was wrinkled, the tie loosened.
William, please, Edward said, reaching out.
Just listen. William spun around so fast Edward stumbled backward. I'm done listening to you. I'm done believing your lies. Thomas had never seen the prince like this. William's composure was legendary. Even during the worst media storms, the hardest royal duties, he kept his face neutral, professional, but now his emotions were spilling out like water from a broken dam. It wasn't a lie, Edward insisted. His voice cracked. Everything I did was to keep the family safe. To keep you safe. Safe. William stepped closer. His voice dropped to something quieter, but infinitely more dangerous. You leaked those documents to the press, after everything we've been through? After I trusted you with everything, you betrayed us. Thomas's mind raced. Leaked documents? He thought back to 3 weeks ago. The headlines that shocked the nation. Private royal communications exposed. Financial dealings questioned. The palace had launched an investigation, but no one had been caught. Everyone assumed it was an outside hack, a security breach. But it was Edward. It was someone inside. I had to, Edward said. Tears were streaming down his face now. You don't understand the pressure I was under. They threatened my family. My daughter. They said if I didn't give them something, they'd hurt her. William's expression shifted. The anger flickered, replaced briefly by confusion. Then something harder settled in his eyes. You had choices. You could have come to me. We could have protected your family. Instead, you chose to destroy mine. I panicked, Edward whispered. I made a mistake. Please. I've given my whole life to this family and you threw it away in one moment of cowardice. William's voice was steady now. Cold. Final. You're finished here. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out within the hour. Edward's face crumpled. William, no? Please, this job is all I have. My reputation? Your reputation? William's laugh was sharp. What about ours? What about the damage you've done? The trust you've shattered? Thomas watched Edward sink against the wall, his legs seeming to give out. The man looked 20 years older suddenly, broken, but William showed no mercy. He stood tall, every inch the future king, and Thomas saw something he'd never seen before. True authority. Not the kind that came from a title or a crown. The kind that came from a man who'd been betrayed and chosen strength over sympathy. Pack your things, William said. If you're still here when I come back, I'll have you arrested for theft and treason. Edward opened his mouth to protest, but no sound came out. He just nodded. Defeated? William turned and walked down the corridor, passing within feet of Thomas's hiding spot. For a brief second, their eyes met. Thomas froze. William paused. The prince's expression was unreadable. Then he gave the slightest nod, as if acknowledging Thomas's presence but asking for silence, and continued walking. The echo of his footsteps faded. Edward remained slumped against the wall, his face buried in his hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Thomas stood in the shadows, his mind spinning. He'd witnessed something he was never meant to see, and now he had to decide what to do about it. Morning came too quickly. Thomas had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw William's face. That mixture of rage and heartbreak. He'd replayed the conversation 100 times, trying to make sense of it all. By 6 a.m., he was back in the guardhouse, nursing his third cup of coffee. You look terrible, his partner Marcus said, dropping into the chair beside him. Marcus had been on the day shift yesterday, completely unaware of what happened in the night. Thomas managed a weak smile. Long night. Heard Edward's gone, Marcus said casually, scrolling through his phone. Just like that. 20 years of service, and he's out before breakfast. Palace released a statement an hour ago. Pursuing other opportunities. That's code for something messy. Thomas's grip tightened on his cup. What else are they saying? Nothing official. But the staff is talking. Some say he had a breakdown. Others think he stole something. Marcus glanced up. You were on duty last night. See anything? The question hung in the air. Thomas felt the weight of it pressing down on his chest. He could tell Marcus everything, but that would mean breaking the silent agreement he'd made with William in that brief eye contact. The prince had trusted him to stay quiet. Just the usual rounds, Thomas said. The lie tasted bitter. Nothing interesting. Marcus shrugged and went back to his phone. Shame, though. Edward seemed like a good guy. Wonder what really happened. Thomas wondered, too. Not about what happened, but about what came next. Edward had said someone threatened his daughter. That meant whoever leaked the documents might not be satisfied. They might come back for more. Or worse, they might target Edward himself to keep him silent. 3 days passed. Thomas kept his head down, did his job, and tried not to think about that night. But on the 4th day, something changed. He was assigned a close protection detail for William's public appearance at a charity event. It wasn't his usual assignment. Someone had specifically requested him. The event was at a children's hospital in London. William moved through the rooms with practiced ease, smiling for cameras, speaking gently to sick children and their worried parents. Thomas stayed 3 steps behind, scanning the crowd, watching for threats. But he could feel William's awareness of him. A tension in the air between them. Halfway through the visit, William stopped to talk with a young girl in a wheelchair. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her head was wrapped in a bright purple scarf. She showed William a drawing she'd made of a castle. His smile softened, became genuine. "That's beautiful," William said, crouching down to her level. "Is this where you want to live?" The girl nodded shyly. "With the prince? So I can be safe." William's expression flickered. Just for a second, Thomas saw it. The reminder of safety, of trust, of what Edward had broken. "You're already safe," William told her gently. "You're one of the bravest people I've ever met." The girl beamed. Her mother wiped tears from her eyes. The cameras flashed, and Thomas understood something in that moment. This was why William had been so angry. It wasn't just about betrayal. It was about the responsibility he carried. Every decision mattered. Every person in his circle had to be trustworthy, because the stakes were always this high. After the event, Thomas was escorted to a private room. William was already there, standing by the window, still wearing his public smile, but his eyes were tired. "Close the door," William said quietly. Thomas obeyed. His heart raced. This was it. Whatever consequence was coming for witnessing that night, he'd face it now. "You were there?" William said. It wasn't a question. "In the corridor." "Yes, sir." Thomas kept his voice steady. "I was making my rounds. I heard voices. I should have announced myself, but William held up a hand. You did exactly what you should have done. You stayed quiet. You protected the family from further scandal." Turned to face Thomas fully. "I need to know. Can I trust you?" The question caught Thomas off guard. "Of course, sir. Always." "No," William said. "I mean really trust you. Because what you witnessed that night, what you know about Edward, it can't leave this room. The official story is that he resigned for personal reasons. That's what the public believes. That's what keeps this family intact." Thomas nodded slowly. "I understand. Do you?" William's gaze was intense. "Because I need someone close to me now who I can actually rely on. Someone who isn't playing games or hiding agendas. I thought I had that with Edward. I was wrong." The weight of what William was offering hit Thomas like a wave. This wasn't just about silence. This was about stepping into a new role, a position of deeper trust. "I won't let you down," Thomas said. William studied him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Good, because there's something else you need to know." William walked to a desk in the corner and pulled out a thin folder. He hesitated before handing it to Thomas. "This doesn't leave this room. Read it here now." Thomas opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, transcripts of phone calls, financial records. His eyes scanned the pages, and with each line, his blood ran colder. Edward hadn't just been threatened. He'd been systematically manipulated for over 6 months. The people behind it weren't random criminals. They were connected to a foreign intelligence operation. They knew everything about him, William said quietly. His daughter's school schedule, his wife's medical appointments, his own gambling debts from 15 years ago that he thought were buried. They used all of it. Thomas looked up. "How did you find this?" Edward left a confession. A full written account. He sent it to me the morning after our confrontation. William's jaw tightened. He knew he was finished either way. At least this way, he could expose who was really behind it. Why not go to the police? To M.I. Wu? We did, quietly. William took the folder back, his hands careful with the damning papers. They're building a case now, but it takes time. These people are sophisticated. They'd been targeting royal households across Europe, gathering information, looking for weak points. Thomas felt his perspective shifting. Edward wasn't just a traitor. He was a victim too. A man who'd made a terrible choice under impossible pressure. Does this change anything? About Edward? No. William's answer was immediate and firm. He still betrayed us. He still had choices. Difficult ones, but choices nonetheless. He could have come to us before it went this far. He chose to handle it alone. And that choice cost him everything. The hardness in William's voice made Thomas realize something. This wasn't just about Edward. This was about the impossible burden of leadership. The constant weight of knowing that mercy could be seen as weakness. That forgiveness could invite more attacks. "What do you need from me?" Thomas asked. William looked at him with something close to relief. "The investigation is ongoing. There might be others in the palace who've been compromised. Staff who are being pressured or blackmailed. I need someone watching. Someone these people don't know is looking. You're still just a guard to them. That's your advantage." Thomas understood immediately. He was being asked to spy on his colleagues, to watch for signs of betrayal among people he'd worked with for years. It felt wrong. But looking at William's exhausted face, at the weight this young man carried, Thomas knew it was necessary. "I'll do it," he said. "There's a risk," William warned. "If they discover you're watching, you could become a target too." "Your family?" "I don't have family, sir. No wife, no children. It's just me." Thomas had always seen his solitary life as a deficit. Now, suddenly it felt like armor. William nodded slowly. "Then we start now. There's someone I need you to pay attention to. Margaret Hayworth. She's been the communications director for 3 years. Exemplary record. But last week she started acting strangely. Missing meetings. Making phone calls she thinks no one notices." Thomas knew Margaret. She was sharp, professional, always perfectly composed. If she was compromised, she'd be incredibly dangerous. She had access to nearly everything. "What do you want me to find?" "Proof. One way or another. Either she's innocent and dealing with something personal, or she's the next Edward. I need to know which." Thomas felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This was bigger than guarding doors or walking corridors. This was about protecting the institution itself from enemies who worked in shadow and silence. "I won't let you down," he repeated. William's expression softened slightly. "I know. That's why I chose you. You could have sold your story about that night to any tabloid for a fortune. You could have destroyed us with a single conversation. But you didn't. Stayed loyal when you had every reason not to." Thomas hadn't even considered the tabloid angle. The thought felt alien. Wrong. His loyalty wasn't for sale. "There's one more thing," William said. "Edward's daughter. She's safe now. The people threatening her have been identified. But Edward himself, he's vulnerable. He knows too much. And the people who used him might decide he's a liability. You want me to protect him?" Thomas couldn't hide his surprise. "I want you to keep an eye on him, discreetly. He's being moved to a safe location under MI5 protection. But I need to know he's actually safe, because despite everything, despite the betrayal, he still gave us the information we needed to fight back. That counts for something." Thomas saw the complexity in William's eyes. The prince, who'd been so cold and furious in that corridor, was still there. But so was the man who couldn't completely abandon someone who'd served his family for 20 years. Even after everything. "I understand," Thomas said. William extended his hand. Thomas shook it, feeling the firmness of the grip. The silent promise passing between them. "Welcome to the inner circle, Thomas. It's lonelier than you think." 2 weeks passed in careful observation. Thomas watched Margaret like a shadow, noting every unusual movement, every strange phone call. She was good, professional, but small cracks were showing. She'd leave meetings abruptly, check her phone obsessively. Twice, Thomas saw her hands shaking when she thought no one was looking. On Wednesday afternoon, Margaret left the palace 40 minutes early. Thomas followed at a distance, staying 3 cars back as she drove through London's winding streets. She parked near a small cafe in Bloomsbury. Thomas watched from across the street as she went inside, ordered nothing, sat at a corner table. A man joined her 10 minutes later. Average height. Unremarkable, except for one detail, the way he sat with his back to the wall. Eyes constantly scanning the room. Professional. Trained Thomas snapped photos with his phone, being careful to stay hidden behind a newspaper stand. The conversation lasted 18 minutes. Margaret did most of the talking. The man just listened, occasionally nodding. When it ended, Margaret looked worse than before, pale, shaken. The man walked away, without looking back. Thomas followed the man instead of Margaret. Professional instinct. The man led him on a route designed to spot tails, doubling back, taking random turns, stopping to check reflections in shop windows. Thomas had to drop back twice to avoid detection. But he managed to track him to a building in Mayfair. He called William immediately on a secure line they'd set up. I have something. Margaret met with someone. Professional operative. I tracked him to an address. Send me everything. Photos, location, all of it. William's voice was tight. Don't approach him. Don't do anything else. Just come back. Thomas returned to the palace by evening. William was waiting in the same private room, but this time he wasn't alone. 2 men in suits stood with him. MI5, Thomas realized. The real investigators. Tell them what you saw, William said. Thomas recounted everything. The meeting. The man's behavior. The location. One of the MI5 agents pulled out a tablet and showed Thomas a photograph. Is this him? Thomas nodded. That's him. The agents exchanged glances. Nikolai Petrov, known FSB operative. He's been on our radar for months, but we couldn't connect him to anything concrete. This is the break we needed. What about Margaret? Thomas asked. Is she working with him? We don't think so, the second agent said. We've been monitoring her communications. Nothing suggests voluntary cooperation. More likely, she's being coerced. Same pattern as Edward? They find leverage and squeeze. William's expression darkened. Then we need to protect her. And we need to use this to stop them. The first agent nodded. We're going to bring her in tonight, but we need to do it carefully. If Petrov realizes we're onto him, he'll disappear, and we lose our chance to roll up the whole network. Thomas watched the plan unfold over the next hour. It was intricate, careful. Margaret would be approached by friendly agents posing as palace security. She'd be given a choice: cooperate and be protected, or face charges for whatever compromising position she'd been forced into. Most people in her situation chose cooperation. I want Thomas there, William said suddenly. When you approach her, she knows him. She trusts a familiar face more than strangers. The agents agreed. At 9 p.m., Thomas found himself in a black SUV with 2 MI5 agents parked outside Margaret's home in Chelsea. The lights were on. She was home. Thomas felt his heart pounding. This was nothing like his usual work. This was spycraft. Real danger. Remember, the lead agent said, keep it calm, friendly. We're here to help her. That's the message. They approached the door. Thomas knocked. The sound echoed in the quiet street. Footsteps inside. The door opened a crack. Margaret's face appeared and immediately paled when she saw Thomas flanked by the 2 agents. Margaret, Thomas said gently, we need to talk. Can we come in? Her eyes darted past them to the street, looking for threats, or maybe looking for escape. What is this about? We know about Petrov, the lead agent said quietly. We know he's been pressuring you. We're here to help. Margaret's composure shattered. Her legs buckled. Thomas caught her before she fell. She was crying now, deep, broken sobs. I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to. But they have videos of my husband. Things that would destroy him. Destroy us. They got her inside, sat her down, and slowly, carefully, she told them everything. It was the same playbook they'd used on Edward. Find the vulnerability. exploit it, force cooperation. They'd been making her pass along information about William's schedule, his private communications. Nothing catastrophic yet, but building towards something bigger. They wanted me to arrange a private meeting, Margaret whispered, between William and a supposed diplomat next week. But I knew it wasn't real. I think they're planning something terrible. The agents worked quickly. They recorded her statement, made calls, set protection details. And Thomas sat beside Margaret, holding her hand, telling her she'd done the right thing by being honest. When it was over, when Margaret was safely in MI5 custody, Thomas stepped outside into the cold night air. William was waiting by the SUV. He must have been there the whole time. She's cooperating, William asked. Fully, and she gave us details about a planned meeting. Next week, they were going to lure you into something. William's jaw clenched. Then we use it. We set a trap. And we end this. Thomas saw something dangerous in William's eyes. Not recklessness, but determination. The kind that came from being pushed too far. This is bigger than we thought, Thomas said quietly. No. But it ends now. Whatever they're planning, we stop it. Together. The plan was dangerous. William would attend the fake meeting, but MI5 would control every element. The location was changed to a building they'd swept and secured. Every person in the room would be vetted. And Thomas would be at William's side the entire time, wearing a concealed wire and armed for the first time in his career. The morning of the operation, Thomas felt the weight of the weapon on his hip. It felt wrong, foreign, but necessary. They were walking into the unknown. He was the last line of defense if everything went sideways. William was surprisingly calm. He dressed in his usual sharp suit, smiled at staff, acted like it was just another diplomatic meeting. But Thomas saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped against his leg. The prince was human after all, and he was afraid. Second thoughts? Thomas asked quietly as they rode in the armored car toward the location. Hundreds, William admitted, but we're past the point of turning back. If we don't stop this now, they'll keep coming. They'll find new targets, new ways to get inside. This ends today. The building was in Kensington. Nondescript, perfect for a private diplomatic meeting. MI5 had 30 agents positioned inside and around the perimeter. Snipers on rooftops, surveillance everywhere. But the key was making it look normal, natural. If Petrov suspected a trap, he'd vanish. They entered through the main door. Thomas's hand stayed close to his weapon. William walked ahead with practiced confidence. They were shown to a conference room on the third floor. Two men waited inside. One was introduced as a junior diplomat from the Russian embassy. The other was Nikolai Petrov himself, though he used a false name. Your Royal Highness, Petrov said with a slight bow. His English was perfect, his smile practiced. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. There are matters of mutual interest we hope to discuss. William took a seat. Thomas stood behind him, eyes locked on Petrov. The man was good, calm, professional, giving nothing away. But Thomas saw the calculation in his eyes, the way he assessed the room. Looking for weaknesses, the conversation started innocuously. Trade relations, cultural exchanges. William played his part perfectly, asking questions, showing interest. But gradually, Petrov steered the discussion toward security matters. Palace protocols, William's travel schedule, personal details disguised as friendly curiosity. And your children, Petrov said casually, they must keep you busy. How do you manage the security arrangements with their schools? It was a test, a probe. William's expression didn't change, but Thomas saw his fingers tighten on the armrest. We have excellent people managing those details. I don't involve myself in the specifics, of course, though I imagine after the recent incident with your former secretary, you've become more cautious about who you trust. There it was, the real agenda. Petrov knew about Edward, was testing to see how much William knew. The trap was springing, but whose trap? Edward made his choices, William said calmly. We've moved on. Stronger than before. Petrov's smile thinned. Interesting. Because we heard he might have shared certain information before his departure. Sensitive information that could be embarrassing if it became public. It was a threat. Thinly veiled, but unmistakable. William leaned forward slightly. Is that why we're really here? To threaten me? Not at all, Petrov said smoothly. Merely to suggest that cooperation can be beneficial. For everyone, you have secrets. We have secrets. Perhaps an arrangement could be reached. Thomas's hand moved to his weapon. This was it. The moment. William stood slowly, his full height commanding the room. The only arrangement being reached today is your arrest. Petrov's expression changed instantly. The smooth diplomat vanished. What remained was cold calculation. His hand moved toward his jacket. Thomas drew his weapon in the same instant. Don't. The door burst open. Mi-5 agents flooded in. Petrov was on the ground in seconds, hands cuffed behind his back. The fake diplomat tried to run but was tackled in the hallway. It was over in less than 30 seconds. William stood perfectly still through all of it. Only when the room was secured did he exhale. His hands were shaking, but his face remained composed. Is it done? It's done, the lead agent confirmed. We got everything on tape. The threats. The attempted blackmail. Combined with Margaret's testimony and Edward's documents, we have enough to shut down their entire operation. Thomas holstered his weapon, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. He'd drawn his gun, been ready to fire if necessary. The weight of it hit him suddenly. This was what William had been carrying alone. The knowledge that danger was always one wrong move away. Days later, the news broke. A foreign intelligence operation targeting British royal households had been dismantled. Several arrests made. The palace released a carefully worded statement thanking security services. Edward's name was never mentioned. Neither was Margaret's. They'd both been given immunity in exchange for their cooperation and testimony. Thomas stood in the corridor again, the sealed one. The door was open now, just a hallway, but he'd never see it the same way. This was where it started, where he witnessed a prince break and rebuild himself, where loyalty was tested and found true. William found him there late one evening. Remembering that night? Hard to forget it, sir. I was so angry, William said quietly. At Edward, at myself for trusting him, at the whole situation, but I've realized something. That anger saved us. It made me careful, made me question everything, including who I could really trust. And William smiled slightly. I found someone. You proved yourself, Thomas. Not just that night, but every day since. The monarchy survives because of people like you. People who choose loyalty when it would be easier to choose profit. It was never a choice, Thomas said honestly. This is who I am. I know. That's what makes you invaluable. William extended his hand one final time. Thank you. For everything. Thomas shook it firmly. No more words were needed. They both understood what had been built in that sealed corridor. Trust forged in crisis. Loyalty tested by fire. And a friendship that transcended titles and protocol. The incident would never be public. The full story would remain classified. But Thomas carried it with him. The night a prince went berserk with righteous anger, and a guard learned that true service meant standing in the shadows, protecting not just bodies but secrets, honor, and the weight of a crown that would one day rest on William's head. Some stories weren't meant for the world. They were meant for the two people who lived them, and that was enough.